The sun was shining brightly on the track as Emily stood at the starting line. It was the day of the big race, the one she had been training for all year. Her heart raced with excitement and nerves. This was her chance to prove herself. She looked around at the other runners, all focused, stretching, and preparing for the competition. The whistle blew and the runners took their positions. Emily took a deep breath and got into her stance. She could hear her coach's voice in her head. "Stay calm. Focus on your form. You've got this." The gun fired and they were off. Emily sprinted forward, her legs pumping hard. She felt strong, her training kicking in as she quickly found her rhythm. The crowd was cheering, but all she could hear was the sound of her breathing and the pounding of her feet on the track. For most of the race, Emily stayed in the lead. She felt confident, her muscles responding perfectly. But as they rounded the last bend, she saw another runner gaining on her. It was Jess, one of her strongest competitors. Emily pushed harder, but Jess was faster. With only a few meters to go, Jess passed her, crossing the finish line just a second ahead. Emily finished second. Breathing heavily, she slowed down and came to a stop, bending over with her hands on her knees. She had given it her all, but it wasn't enough. She had been so close to winning, and now she felt a mix of disappointment and frustration. As the crowd clapped for the winners, Emily walked over to the sidelines, where her coach was waiting. "You did great, Emily," her coach said. "Second place is still a big achievement." Emily nodded, trying to smile, but inside she felt defeated. She had worked so hard and it wasn't enough. Later that day, Emily sat at home, replaying the race in her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about that last moment when Jess passed her. What had gone wrong? Had she pushed herself too early? Was it her speed, her endurance? She didn't know. That night, Emily made a decision. She wasn't going to give up. Next year, she would come back stronger. She would train harder, improve her speed, and work on her endurance. She would do whatever it took to win. The next day, Emily was back on the track. While most of the other runners were taking a break after the competition, Emily was already thinking about the future. She talked to her coach about her plan, and together, they created a new training schedule. Emily's days became a routine of running drills, strength training, and stretching. Her coach helped her focus on her weaknesses, working to improve her finishing speed. Some days were tough, her legs ached, her muscles were sore, and sometimes she felt exhausted. But every time she thought about giving up, she remembered the feeling of crossing the finish line second. That feeling pushed her to keep going. Her friends noticed how dedicated she was. They would sometimes tease her about how much time she spent training, but Emily didn't mind. She had a goal, and nothing was going to distract her. As the months passed, Emily could feel herself getting stronger. She was faster, more focused, and more determined than ever. Every time she ran, she pushed herself to beat her previous times. She was determined to be ready for the next race. Finally, the day of the next big race arrived. Emily stood at the starting line again, just like she had a year ago. The sun was shining, the crowd was cheering, and her heart raced with excitement. But this time she felt different. She felt prepared. As she looked down the track, she spotted Jess again. They made eye contact and Jess smiled at her. But Emily didn't let it distract her. She had one focus: to win. The whistle blew and they took their positions. The gun fired and they were off. Emily sprinted forward, her body moving with power and precision. She had trained for this moment all year, and she wasn't going to let anything stop her. For most of the race, Emily stayed in the lead just like before. But this time she didn't let up. She didn't slow down. She had learned from her mistake, and she kept pushing herself, even when her legs started to burn. As they rounded the final bend, she could hear Jess behind her gaining ground. But Emily didn't panic. She focused on her breathing, her form, and her speed. With everything she had left, she sprinted toward the finish line. This time, Emily crossed the line first. She slowed to a stop, breathing heavily, and turned around to see Jess finishing behind her. The crowd was cheering, but Emily could hardly hear them. All she could feel was the overwhelming joy of knowing that she had done it. She had won. Her coach came running over, a huge smile on his face. "You did it, Emily. I knew you could do it." Emily grinned, feeling a wave of pride and relief wash over her. All the hard work, The long hours of training, the pain and the exhaustion, it had all been worth it. As she stood on the podium, holding her first-place trophy, Emily looked out at the crowd. She had proven to herself that she could succeed, even after disappointment. And now she knew that she could overcome any challenge if she put her heart into it.